All right, what's up, everybody? This is Cody, aka DFS Prodigy, coming to you live to talk about the upcoming NFL Thursday night slate on Draftkings. So I have my good friend here, DFS Fantasy Talkshow, to break it down the upcoming slate. Basically, we're going to go over the captain plays and then so on and so forth, and just basically talking about this slate and giving you all the picks that we basically think are going to go out there and win it all. So,
Yes, sir.
how's it going, man?
Man, we're just chilling here down in Raleigh, North Carolina. Enjoying the nice weather for now, and just living the dream.
Right. So at the top, we have Tom Brady, Allen Robertson, Nick Foles, Mitch Trubisky, so on and so forth.
Two
Basically,
QBs in the top four. Oh my
yeah,
God.
basically three out of the top four are QBs.
Yikes.
So my question to you is, how do you think the leash is going to go on Nick Foles? Do you think he's going to get pulled, or if he plays bad, or how's
Oh,
it going to be handled,
God.
in your opinion?
So I actually did something similar to this on Monday. So with the whole Patriots situation, Brian Hoyer, I kind of had a feeling that he was going to have a short leash in terms of how many mistakes he could actually make before Bill pulled him, and he actually got a longer leash than I expected, but I still got pulled. So I actually totally avoided that, just because if you don't know if your QB's going to play the full game, I'm especially at the price that they're at, I don't want them. Like Hoyer was a different story; it was pretty cheap, but um, with Foles, it's kind of like he has to do really well for you in this sort of setting. Like if he doesn't get pulled, he's probably okay. But going against the Tampa Bay defense, it's been a very good defense this year. I don't see the need to get there if you don't feel like you have the salary for it.
So yeah, so I know that a lot of showdown slates, people like to put two QBs basically in the cash
Yeah.
option, but this
Yeah.
slate is a little bit different to me because Nick Foles is 15,000 when Mitch Trubisky is 14,700, so that's super close to me. And now with the value opening up because of injuries,
Yep.
I'm not so on the bandwagon of having two QBs. But
Absolutely.
in the captain slot, people are going to go to Tom Brady, of course, because he's the highest priced player, so on and so forth, the name value. But a guy that me and you both talked about before the video is on the opposite side of Allen Robertson. Either way, Allen Robertson's going to get targets. He's going to get peppered with targets. Basically, he's a guy you can't go wrong with. But there's another guy on the other side of the ball is Mike Evans, who basically is pretty cheap in my opinion. And
Yeah.
yes, he's questionable, but he literally had 2 yards and two TDs. So what else more can you get? So that's the
Exactly.
route I'm looking at. I think we're pretty much on the same page. But who do you like more between Mike Evans and Al Robertson?
I can't believe there's a slate that Mitchell Trubisky is priced higher than Mike Evans.
Right?
That's kind of bizarre to me. If you told me that at any point this season, I would be like, "Is Mr. Trubisky in the MVP race? Like, what's going on with that?" um, but no, I agree with you a lot. I don't think you need to go QB in the captain spot just because Brady got in the captain spot a lot last week just because he threw 5 touchdowns and he spread out the ball a lot. But Mike Evans definitely is a guy who's going to eat up a lot of targets. Allen Robinson, interestingly enough, actually was having a pretty bad fantasy day up until that final drive where Foles, targeted him back to back to back. He ended up, I think he had like 7 receptions, just over 100 yards. So it turned into a good day for him. But, that's the kind of drives you get out of an Allen Robinson, where he literally gets targeted the whole drive. So those two guys are, really looking good up there at the captain slot. But if I want to shift gears to running backs a little bit, a sneaky guy that could come up is Ronald
Right?
Jones. So I think Ronald Jones, the guy with Leonard Fournette, doubtful. I assume he's not going to play. Shady already ruled
Yeah.
out. He's going to get the lion's share of the carries. So he hit 100 yards last week. He had, I think, 6 or 7 catches out of the backfield, which is something that we really haven't seen from Ronald Jones. So that excites me a little bit.
Yeah, now that his hands are finally working in the pass catching field, yeah. So he's a sneaky guy that I think we can go different with as a pivot
Yep.
to Mike Evans because, like I said, the name value is strong among DFS players. Is they're going to see a guy like Mike Evans or Tom Brady, so on and so forth, basically in the captain slot. But you can go sneaky with Ronald Jones now.
Yeah.
So basically, going to the flex option, we're not going to get to really much of Nick Foles or Mitch Trubisky. I'm off of them too, just like you are. Godwin's already
Yep.
ruled out, so that helps us a lot knowing that information early, knowing that he's ruled out. So talk to me a guy like talk to me about a guy with Montgomery. He's a guy basically just is inconsistent. He's not going to really get you that much points. His floor is pretty low. I mean, he's just a guy I can never really get to.
Yeah, so Montgomery's like when Cohen, was ruled out for the season with the ACL, I thought maybe he, would have some sort of, value coming up because, he's going to get the lion's share of the carries. He's, their main guy. But the problem with David Montgomery is he just doesn't, like you said, he's very inconsistent, and he gets those 1-2 yard touchdowns. He doesn't break those 30-yard touchdowns that you're looking for in an RB1. And it's just really tough to play him on a showdown slate where he's priced higher than Ronald Jones for one.
Yeah.
Guys below him like Scotty Miller, who are going to get a lot of looks because, like you said, there's no Godwin, so I don't think Montgomery's a guy you need to get to. But then on the flip side, you look at it and it's like it's a showdown slate. So if he does get the 2-2 yard touchdowns, he's in the optimal lineup. So Montgomery's one of those guys that like you have to take a stance on. You're either all about David Montgomery or you're getting none of them, and I'm on the latter.
So we could go a route. You can always go a route with having two lineups where you have one with Montgomery and one with Ronald Jones. Like we said, we got to take a stand. But if you want to play the safe route, my route would be not to play Montgomery from a personal standpoint. I'd rather have the cheaper option, Ronald Jones. But I mean, other than that, and the running back options, you can get to a guy like all the way down at the bottom with Vaughn, who Vaughn's only $1,000, literally $1,000, where he's going to have the basically more snaps or more shares in the backfield because of McCoy being out and Fournette probably being out. So he's going to have to step up his workload. I can see him having a couple of carries here and there, maybe even at the goal line. So he's a guy that that's a flyer, in my opinion, that we need value, and he's the value that I'm looking at. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be the RB2. Ronald Jones is a guy who even though I did say he had 6 catches last game, he does have trouble with his hands sometimes. And even though he had 6 receptions last week, I think he still dropped one really bad one. So this could really help Vaughn in terms of getting receptions, and $1,000 is not a hard price to hit. All he really needs is 5 to 10 points to really cover that price, and maybe even probably 5 is good enough. But Vaughn's a guy that probably is going to be popular, but like very well warranted because he's gonna get plenty of shares.
Most definitely. So now going back up, we have the wide receiver in Scotty Miller, who is questionable, which is kind of scary to me because if he's out, who is Tom Brady going to throw the ball to? Basically, if Evans is out, my initial thought is that Evans is going to play and Scotty Miller is just a 50-50 shot. But if Scotty Miller is out, you could look to a guy like Rob Gronkowski, who's going to have to step up. He's looked bad this season. I think he's in line for a good game coming up. He's going to want to bounce back. And now that's Brady's go-to guy, basically. So I like him a lot, Gronk, if Miller is out, to have to step up his role.
Yeah, I mean, Scotty Miller, actually, interestingly enough, I don't know, I think I just saw this on Twitter, but Scotty Miller is the only questionable guy that got any limited practice this week. I think he practiced limited today or yesterday. And actually Mike Evans didn't practice at all this week. So that's
scary.
That's kind of something you got to look at as like, interesting. Cause I think that seems to me like Scotty's going to play. He looked really good last week too. I'm hoping he plays because I think he's going to be a lock in my lineup if he does play. But like going back to Gronk, obviously they have a great rapport. Him and Brady, dating back to the New England days, my favorite time because I'm a Patriots fan. So that was really hard when he got traded for a 4th round pick. But, he's been mainly in a blocking role this year. And I think they're going to have to expand on his role if like you said, Mike Evans and or Scotty Miller miss. So I can definitely see Gronk getting some looks. It all depends on if they miss. If one or the other or both miss, Gronk's gonna have to do something.
Right. So that's where I'm going with too, is basically I'm not getting to a guy basically on the Bears side with Jimmy Graham as a tight end. He's just washed up in my opinion. He's not the same on the field whatsoever, and his price is pretty high to me. When you can go to a fast younger player in Anthony Miller who can run down the field easily in the slot and get you a long TD. He's a boomer bust option, yes, but if you want to get to a Bears receiver, I'd rather get to Miller than Graham. But if I had to rank it, it would be Robertson, Miller, then Graham. What are your thoughts on Miller versus Graham?
Yeah, so this Bears offense is kind of it's very very lackluster to say the least. We were all blaming Mitch Trubisky for not making plays, for making bad throws, but I mean, Nick Foles went out and scored what 11 points against the Colts.
Trash.
Like, it's just like I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's a coordinator or what, but yeah, this Bears offense. I mean, if they're gonna get any offense going, it's gonna be going through A-Rob, and it's gonna be going through probably Anthony Miller. I mean, Anthony Miller is a young, good guy. He made some great catches so far this season, but um, Jimmy Graham, I hate to say it, but I drafted him on my best ball team, and mostly just for the hope that he would return to the Jimmy Graham that we all know and love from when he was on the Saints. But like you said, he's pretty washed up by this point. I mean, he's very touchdown dependent,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is actually which is very interesting on a showdown slate because someone's got to score, right? Like, but if you're looking for a safe option, it's definitely more toward Anthony Miller, and that's kind of scary to say out loud. But Anthony Miller, I think, looks like more of the guy who could rack up receptions rather than Jimmy Graham.
So an interesting guy in Darrell Mooney is that basically he's been stepping up now in the role as a number 2 receiver, but now he's questionable. So that kind of scares me off of him. But I like his price tag. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, Mooney's a guy that really I wasn't looking at. When the season first started, obviously had to step up because I mean, no one other than A-Rob really has. I mean, Anthony Miller, yeah, he's good, but he hasn't been consistent enough. And Mooney's kind of done an okay job in stepping in, kind of taking that wide receiver 2 role. But I it's really hard for me to take him, mostly just because I don't trust the Bears offense at all, really. And going against the Tampa Bay defense, it's been very good. Interestingly enough, they haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher all year. So obviously that doesn't have to do much with receivers, but it just shows how good their defense is. And I don't want to dig too deep in the Bears offense, other than maybe just hitting A-Rob, because right now that's all I really have in the Bears offense.
Right. So transitioning into the defenses, obviously the 1,000 price tag is kind of interesting to me between the two. I don't see anybody getting to the Bears defense. I mean, it is a scary defense here and there, but this season is just not the same. But the Buccaneers defense has stepped up, which I think they're going to basically limit the rushing attempts in Montgomery and check on Nick Foles. So I'm liking the Bears defense if you want to do a pivot to them, then off a player basically, because the Buccaneers defense is legit in my opinion.
Yeah, the Bucs defense. You said the Bears, man.
My bad. Obviously not the Bears.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, because it's an interesting thing because on a showdown slate like this with, Tampa Bay, we came into the season thinking they were going to be like a super team, like, kind of like the Browns came in last year and they put up, I think, what was it, 35 against the Chargers last week, which, was good to see. But, I think they're still feeling things out. And with these injuries, I think if you're trying to take a stance and saying the Bears are going to win this game, I think you can put the Bears defense in. But personally, I do like the Bucs defense better, mostly because I think the Bucs quality, their defensive quality is really good. The offensive quality of the Bears, it's just not. It's not good. It's not good. But yeah, I think the defenses are something you got to look at this week because usually I don't look at the defenses because they obviously have limited upside. But with this week, I think it's good to look at the defenses, especially on the Buccaneers side.
So talk to me a guy now, the last player that we're going to get to basically. Talk to me a guy by Cameron Brate.
Oh, Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate's interesting because most of the time that he pops up, it's in the red zone, which is good for a fantasy tight end. But the problem is he pops up one time a game. He had one target last week, one catch, 3-yard touchdown. That's all he got the whole game, and that's with OJ Howard on IR. So you're telling me that he's the tight end 2 now behind Gronk, and Gronk's in a blocking role. So much of me wants to say, hey, let's go get Cameron Brate because he can go downfield a little bit, but the targets just aren't there. And it's a little concerning to me. And now that Godwin's out, obviously Howard's out, the injuries are starting to stack up for them. Someone's got to step up. And if he gets the targets, Cameron Brate could be the guy that, really breaks through for you, because look at his price. He's 3,800. He's down at a price tag where all he really needs is, one of those short touchdowns. And if anything on top of that is just, putting him in the optimal lineup. So on one hand, I don't trust Brate, but on the other hand, it's kind of like on this slate, if you're going to take a stance on somebody, I think Cameron Brate could be the guy, just because Brady's going to have limited options, and Brate's a guy who can get downfield from that tight end spot.
Exactly. So is there any last minute value options basically down below that you like other than Vaughn that you're getting to, or just pretty much the lowest you're going to get to is Vaughn?
Yeah, I think the lowest I'm going to get to is Vaughn. I really can't see anyone else getting involved. I mean, unless, one of these lower 200 guys are named like the wide receiver too, in case Evans and Miller miss for some reason, that's something that, you'd have to look at on, tomorrow when, the game day injury report comes out. But I mean, a guy like Mickens or
Yeah.
Johnson, like, I don't trust that. It's kind of like the Packers was the other day, like Shepard and I don't even remember his name now, but it's kind of like that situation where I think he's going to have to throw to a lot of tight ends and running backs, and that's what gets me really excited about Ronald Jones. So, and Vaughn for that matter. So I don't think there's any value other than Vaughn really here.
Exactly. So that pretty much wraps it up from my end. Any last minute thoughts for you, man?
Nah, man, that seems like a good wrap to me.
All right, everybody. So I hope everybody finds this video pretty valuable and just basically gets your picks in, and let's just wait for the news out tomorrow. You can always check my Twitter or Daily Fantasy Talk Show's Twitter for updated news on the slate. And that pretty much wraps it up for me, guys. Have a good one, everybody.
See you.